Coming up, a segment from KTWU, your source for public television. Afterwards, don't forget to visit ktwu.org to make a pledge to help make more local programming like this.
Next, we're moving on to explore a program designed to improve water quality in the state. Recently, a couple special events were staged to highlight two success stories. One at Banner Creek Reservoir, west of Holton, and the other along Clarks Creek near Harrington.
In the shade of a large oak tree adjacent to Clarks Creek in western Morris County, local farmers and ranchers came together with state officials and staff members of various agencies to share a meal and celebrate a notable accomplishment. Among those who addressed the gathering was the Secretary of the Kansas Department of Health and Environment.
The purpose of this event is to recognize a significant achievement in locally driven water quality restoration and protection efforts. This creek was designated as an impaired water body by KTWU in 1998 due to excessive bacteria. This project represents a great example of success that can be achieved when local leaders step forward to address water quality problems on a watershed basis.
KTWU removed this creek from its list of impaired water bodies after the bacteria content was reduced to acceptable levels. Credit for that achievement has been attributed primarily to the work of a local group associated with the state's Watershed Restoration and Protection Strategy, the program referred to by its acronym, WRAPS.
And really the WRAPS process locally simply involves organizing local stakeholders within a watershed, assessing the watershed.
The chief of the Watershed Management Section for KTWU, Kerry Weedle, also spoke at this gathering. He notes that the Kansas WRAPS program hasn't really been around very long.
WRAPS program is relatively recent as a state-funded program. There had been a number of watershed-based projects that have been funded over the years, water quality projects through the federal 319 program, which our section administers. And in 2005, then through the Kansas water planning process, the state looked at really embracing that approach, this kind of locally driven watershed-based approach, as really a good way to address a lot of the water quality issues that we have around the state.
To understand the basis of this approach, it's necessary to first understand what a watershed is.
Simply defined, really, what the watershed is the area of land that drains to a common point. And of course, we're looking, really at, like stream segments or a lake. So it's anything that would drain and contribute runoff to that particular water body. Of course, we've got a system that we kind of break these watersheds down from larger watersheds, that actually encompass multiple states, to smaller watersheds like Clarks Creek, where you're dealing with a couple of counties.
The Clarks Creek watershed includes parts of Morris and Geary County, as the creek itself originates on the western edge of the Flint Hills near Harrington, running north to merge with the Kansas River southeast of Fort Riley, a distance of about 25 miles as the crow flies, with the watershed encompassing about 250 square miles.
And a success like this does not come from the work of one person or one agency. There are so many of you out here that have partnered.
An employee of the Flint Hills RC&D, Angela Beavers became the coordinator of the Clarks Creek WRAPS program in 2007.
This program is locally driven. That's the way it was designed. That's the way we've tried to keep it. We feel like people here on the ground that know the local culture, know the local key players are the best ones to make the decisions. Our producers are the ones doing the work, and that's what we really want to stress out of this.
Angela works with a core group of local producers referred to as a stakeholder leadership team. John Moyer is a member of that team.
Yeah, there's probably 8 or so of us, 8 or 10, that's pretty regular members. Almost all of us grew up on the watershed. There's a couple that grew up somewhere else and moved here, but most of us are native to this watershed, so we're really Yeah, it is a grassroots effort.
Grassroots come into play in a literal fashion as well, as another member of the leadership team refers to buffer strips that were planted on land that he farms.
The landlord sure was enthused about putting in the buffer strips and that kind of thing, which I think played right into the RAPS project to keep Clarks Creek or try to get it cleaned up.
Buffer strips are planted between a cropland field and the stream and catch any excess nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus running off those fields. It will catch any sediment that starts to erode off of those fields.
The creation of buffer strips has become an important technique employed by RAPS programs like this one.
One of the first projects that we completed, the wellheads for Morris County Rural Water District number 1 are located at the bottom of the watershed, very close to the creek. So one of the first projects we completed was with the landowner who farms that property right around the wellheads and planted, it was almost a 2-acre buffer around those wellheads just to give it that extra protection.
When they focused on the bacterial contamination that put Clarks Creek on KTWU's list of impaired streams, the primary source of contamination was determined to be animal waste.
We have a lot of, obviously, rangeland, so there are a lot of cattle. There are several confined animal feeding operations where there are 2 very large hog feeding facilities. There were several smaller ones. There are winter feeding sites where guys, when they bring their cattle in the winter, a lot of those feeding sites would be down by the creek where it was a more protected area.
Rather than allowing their animals to lounge near streams and ponds, it's now more commonplace for landowners to restrict direct access by building fences and bringing the water to the livestock. In addition to tighter controls on the waste flowing from the confined feeding operations, this has helped bring Clarks Creek back in line with water quality standards, which has implications for everyone who lives downstream.
Not only do we have this rural water district that services people outside of the actual Clarks Creek watershed, but Clarks Creek obviously flows into the Kansas River. The Kansas River serves people in Topeka, Lawrence, some in Kansas City. Many rural water districts up in northeast Kansas buy their water from Topeka or one of those other municipal sources, and so Clarks Creek really has a very far-reaching impact.
So hopefully we can make things, at least on our watershed, better, and if everybody does that across the state, everything will be a lot better.
What we're doing here may seem local on the ground, but really when you look at the actual impact of where this water goes and who it affects, you know, it's pretty important what we're doing.
Glad you could stop by to see a clip from KTWU. It's your input that helps make public television great. Consider a donation. Browse over to ktwu.org right now.